We are now moving on to part 2 of lesson 1.5.1, and we are rearranging formulas. So last time we were rearranging literal equations, this time it's formulas. And formula is our vocabulary term. We only have one vocabulary term today. And formula is a literal equation that states a specific rule or relationship among quantities. So there are several different examples of a formula. One formula is y equals mx plus b. Another formula would be d equals rt. Another formula is a equals 1/2 b1 plus b2 times h. So they're literal equations because they have two or more variables. But when we say they have a specific rule, it's kind of an order that you would use every time in order to solve for a certain thing. So this first formula is used for linear equations or straight lines. This second formula here is distance equals rate times time. So the distance will always come by multiplying rate and time together. And this last formula is the area of a trapezoid, which if you follow this part every single time, if you follow the rule, it will give you the area. So when we're solving literal equations, really it's going to be the same process that we use to rearrange formulas. So I've written down the 4 steps that we used for rearranging literal formulas or literal equations last time. Really, we're going to follow that same process. Sometimes you won't do every step of the process. Sometimes you will do every step. Sometimes you might have to do a step twice. Let's start out by using d equals rt, and I want to solve it for r. So my first step is to circle the variable I'm solving for, which is r. Next, I want to move the other terms by adding or subtracting. Now, if you remember, a term is any number, variable, or the product of numbers and variables. Well, right here we have r times t, which is a product. So we only have this one single term. Step 2 is to move other terms, meaning other terms that don't have the variable. Well, if this is the only term, then there isn't an other term that we could move. So I really don't need to do anything on step 2. So I'm going to move on to step 3, which is multiply or divide to isolate. So when we have r times t, we will want to use the inverse, which is to divide. I want r to stay behind, and I want to get rid of t. So t is what I'm going to be dividing. T over t cancels, and we are left with d divided by t equals r. So I want to check, is my r alone? Yes, r is the only thing on the right side. And checking step 4, can I simplify this further? Well, I can't simplify d divided by t because I don't know what they represent. So I'm just going to flip this around. Instead of d divided by t equals r, I'm going to say r equals d divided by t. Let's look at another example together. For this second example, I'm going to do 2L plus 2W equals P. This formula is for perimeter. So what it's saying is 2 times the length of something plus 2 times the width equals the perimeter. In other words, if we add all the lengths and all the widths, we get the perimeter. I want to solve this formula. Let's solve it for W. So first I'm going to circle W because that's the variable I'm trying to get alone. Now I'm going to move other terms that don't contain that W. So let's subtract 2L from both sides. Well, 2L minus 2L is 0. Let's bring down what we have left over. We have 2W left over. We have an equal sign left over. We have P left over. And we have minus 2L left over. Next, I need to multiply and divide in order to isolate that W. And I need to multiply and divide every term. So if we want to get W alone, we have to move the 2. So I divide every single term by 2. 2 divided by 2 cancels, so we have W equals P divided by 2 minus 2L divided by 2. And we can cancel out those 2's and say P divided by 2 minus L. Another way you could write it is 1/2 P minus L. And we can write it as 1/2 because there's that invisible 1 that's in front of P right now. So you'll see that the fraction is 1/2 times P. 1/2 times P. So either of these last two is considered correct. If you're a little bit confused and you need to go back, it might help you out to watch part 1 again. This is a little bit more tricky when we don't have numbers in there as well. But it's the same process. So if you feel comfortable with the process on rearranging literal equations, with a little practice, you'll quickly become comfortable with this process as well. Don't forget to take your lesson assessment and come prepared with that done to class tomorrow.